This is Marketing Uncomplicated. And welcome back to the show. I have with me today Hamlet Azarian, who is the founder and CEO of Azarian Growth Agency, a data-driven full-funnel growth agency with over 20 years of experience. They specialize in growing B2C and B2B businesses, particularly in venture-backed startups for pre-seed to Series A, B stages. I'm excited to dive into that. The agency has helped raise over $250 million for innovative tech SaaS companies, so system as a service, through creative and analytical growth strategies. They excel in designing tailor-made growth engines and consumer-centric marketing strategies using rapid experimentation and data, which everyone knows is the way to kind of drive forward to drive success. Welcome to the show, Hamlet.
Sasha, thanks for having me.
Likewise. So I would just love to hear about pre-Azarian agency. Where were you? What sparked your beginnings to start this, and what was your passion and your why to kind of, build this forward?
Great question. So do you want to go pre-even marketing or should we start at marketing and go
Let's go
from there?
pre-marketing.
So pre-marketing, I graduated from USC, was studying entrepreneurship there. And this is in the early dot-com era. So I'm dating myself. This is roughly around
Yeah.
2000. At the time, I was working on a business called Hungry Fingers. This is before phones, and this is when desktops were just coming around and the internet was getting built. And what the idea of Hungry Fingers was your ability to order food online and have it delivered to you. So a la Uber Eats,
Yeah.
Postmates, and I begun the process of doing the business plan. The dot-com era was going. This was the days of you could, go with a business plan and raise hundreds and millions of dollars for zero experience and just a great idea. And
Yeah.
it burst. But we did get our first customer. We did try to build it, and in the process failed miserably.
Yeah.
So we had no idea how to build it. We learned at an early age that this is really, really tough to do. And my career at that point, I realized that maybe I should go learn. Maybe I should go work somewhere that has kind of figured this out. And I applied to different roles. I got different job offers, and then I ended up joining what was at that time eventually became Macy's, but it was the Robinsons May Executive Training Program. So
Okay.
my career actually went into retail. So
Interesting. So
yeah,
from .com to retail. But before you dive into that, why do you think it burst? Do you think you were too soon into the market?
it was the time of the market, right? It was when there was high valuations and overall just a lot of the different companies were not getting to profitability as soon as possible. For us personally, we didn't have the expertise, right?
Yeah.
We had the idea, but we didn't know actually how to build it, and we struggled in that process of it. And I, not compared to my naive self at 18, 19 years old, thinking that I can figure it out, I can build software. I barely knew how to code at that time. Like, I'm like, oh, how hard can this really, really be? To my 40 some year old self, I'm realizing what it really, really takes to build a robust software and really market it and take on it. It's no wonder we were not able to get it off the ground.
Sure, sure. Yeah. So then diving into retail.
Yeah, so I joined their executive training program. I quickly moved up the ranks. Part of why I chose to go there is my mentor at that time, Jim Ellis, he really recommended for me to go to a career that would allow me to explore both my left side of my brain and my right side of the brain. And he had noticed this in me, in my classes, in the presentations I would give. He's like, you're very interesting because you're both creative and you're both analytical. And he thought to me, being a buyer would allow me to do this, and he was right. He was 100% right where I enjoyed it. I enjoyed being able to come up with strategy. I enjoyed coming up with marketing plans. I enjoyed executing, buying the merchandise, getting it into the stores. And my career blossomed relatively quickly. And from Robinson's May, I went on eventually working at Saks Fifth Avenue. And 7 or 8 years into it, I started hearing stories of Zappos and Tony Hsieh and this thing called e-commerce. And I was like, oh God, I picked the wrong path. You know,
Yeah.
when you've gone 7 years into something, you're like, maybe I should be going in the other road
Yeah.
that is moving a little bit
Well, you
faster.
started there.
I started
almost.
there and I
Yeah.
took the wrong road.
Yeah.
So I quit. I literally quit my job. I came back to LA and I started looking for different ways I could transition from being a buyer and getting into more an
Tech.
e-commerce or a high growth company.
Hmm.
And that was my first transition I did in my career. That led me to a company called Venue, which was a high growth company that which we quickly scaled from zero to roughly $100 million ARR in the course of 3 or 4 years. It was a fintech company and
Yep.
it had a retail background. We were providing um, personal credit cards for people to be able to purchase luxury goods. I
Got
was
it.
overseeing the merchandising area of the luxury category, given my Saks Fifth Avenue background, the home business, but I also was at the same time learning how marketing could be done. That then transitioned eventually to me from that company working on smaller projects and then taking on finally my first true marketing role, which was not just marketing, it was also ownership of the full e-commerce site. So I was designing it, I was developing it, I was building it, I was coming up with the marketing strategy, the merchandising strategy. And that was with a dermatologist here out of Los Angeles called Dr. Lin, and the site was called Dr. Lin Direct.
Got it. Okay. So you were kind of like building the full customer journey, if you will, in essence.
Yeah, I was building all of it. I was
Yeah.
learning. I was learning what it took to really get a site up. I was learning what it took to
Front
merchandise
end,
it and
back
market
end.
it.
Yep.
I was learning what it really took to run ads, and where eventually went into this was the early days of YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
So we started creating thousands of videos with a dermatologist talking about different skincare products and the ingredients behind it and what he recommended and what he didn't recommend.
Yeah.
And then we used those videos to run ads on it. And that was kind of the engine we built for him to scale up his business. That eventually led me to another company called Beauty Choice, following a similar strategy where we ended up hiring YouTubers now. So we evolved it a little bit more and we actually ended up hiring different YouTubers. One of the YouTubers we hired was Michelle Phan, who famously did a Lady Gaga video, which was one of our videos that ended up generating millions of views and then that was the beginning of what became known as hauls or influencer marketing and so
Yeah.
on and so forth.
Yeah. Seems like you were at the beginnings and the peaks of like the shift of the market. I mean, .com was like the first kind of piece, and then, the influencers kind of building up. So really cool kind of, introjection into the market as you were just kind of beginning to see things unfold from that sense.
Yeah, that's a great point. And
Yeah.
it's similar to AI, by the way.
Yeah.
So we actually with AI we started using it 4 years ago.
Yeah.
So about 4 years ago, and if you know your open AI history, that's when their APIs became available.
Sure.
So right away we started using it at as part of our workflows with the agency and the different clients we have on how can we optimize content production, how can we improve it overall, how can we scale ads, how can we build landing pages, how can we write better emails, how can we write incredibly better social posts, how can we build brand voice, and so on and so forth. And we've been always tinkering on what's next. And I think that's
Yeah.
just the philosophy I've always had throughout my career is find what everyone else is eventually going to go to and go there first and play with it and figure out what's happening. And then when everyone else comes, go to the next one. Go
Yeah.
find what the next
True.
one will be and start playing there then.
True. And I also think it's a testament to like specifically that you focus on like the tech startup industry where it's rapid fire for these guys. They got to hit market, they got to prove sales, and they got to move forward. So the incorporation of AI, even just automation on fire, like supports that idea to kind of like move forward because it's like they're either have investments, they're having to report back. So it's like how do they kind of show signs of like immediate like product market fit and value almost immediately?
Yeah, for sure. So like what I like to call it is it's such a high pressure environment because not only are you trying to figure out the go to market strategy, you're really actually trying to figure out is the product even have any value? So you're testing two different major things at the same time, right? Am I even in front of the right market? Is this the customer that I thought I was going to go after? And then let alone what I'm showcasing and showing them, are they even getting value out of it? And this tug of war that you go through in the beginning stages of building a very powerful SaaS company or a startup as well really defines you, I think. And I think anyone who's crazy enough to get into the startup ecosystem and work at
Yeah.
the early stage, I like to kind of say it shapes diamonds, right? It'll
Yeah.
take the pressure of it will take anyone that's really operating in it and make them really, sharp and really smart and really creative and analytical. And it's almost you have to obsess over it day and night in order for you to be able to figure out what's going to work and why it's working, and then be able to quickly grow that to a reasonable state that the business could further expand.
Yeah, so I mean, you're not just doing that with your agency, you're also doing that with every client that comes on board. So it's not just being crazy to start your own. It's like you're also like, is this working out for my client? And how do we like figure out like what's that golden nugget for them to just completely flip and kind of move forward in market, right? So it's times
Exactly. So
X.
I think what at least we try to do, right? So part of the success that we had with startups early on was we were very much embedded in them. So I initially started as a consultant. So going to how I get to where I started the agency, I think that's where the conversation we're trying to take it
Yeah.
is once we had the successes, I had the success of e-commerce and then all of these different platforms, I started looking for different startups that I can come in and be an advisor for, but more of a hands-on advisor. And what really learned at that time is these other businesses were great, right? This e-commerce business was great. These other things were great, but these were really bootstrap businesses. The Dr. Lin one, for example, that I took to 0 to 1 million in less than a year, right? I wonder what would happen if I was in a startup environment where I actually had real budgets and I can really execute and scale up
Yeah.
and be able to grow the businesses. So when I started working with different startups, what the problem that we just talked about, what I saw was the team. It's really hard to convince, really, bring in a team members to work for hardly nothing, which is what you're going to do at a startup, right?
Yep. Yep.
You're not going to get paid well at all. You're
You're
going to
gonna
get
work for hardly nothing, and then you're gonna have a hardly nothing budget too.
hardly nothing budget on top of that,
Yeah.
let alone you're going to have to work a lot.
But you're gonna
So
have to like make magic somehow.
somehow you're going to have to make the product become better than it is and the
Yeah.
more in the market as fast as you can.
Yeah.
So that challenge, what taught me is it's going to be really hard to find a team always in place to be able to do this. So what I wanted to do, and this is where the birth of the agency really started coming, was can I have the team already in place? Can I have dedicated marketers or dedicated content writers or dedicated paid media specialists or whatever the role might be ready to go on any client following sort of proven playbooks or methodologies that have worked across multiple clients and multiple industries,
Yep.
and whenever we find the right partner, be able to match it, right? So if it's a B2C, I'm going to put a B2C team together that knows how to go about to run the experiments fast enough so we can find that winning strategy or winning tactic. If it's B2B, do the same thing. Put the team together that's an expert in B2B to be able to develop and run the experiments and find a winning formula or winning the strategy. And this sort of became our operating model of building the agency, and it's what we really focus.
Sorry. Go ahead. I'll edit that out.
So what we ended up doing is we built an academy, and we started really, investing into content, into education. We started hosting webinars. We have a monthly webinar we do. We recently did one with New York Tech Week, where we show everything that we do at the agency. We
Yeah. Go behind the
literally
scenes.
behind the scenes. We
Yeah.
show you how we build, GPTs. We show you how we do our content production. We show you how we go about creating brand voice for particular clients. We
Which
we
is
don't
such
hide
added,
any.
yeah, and it's added value. I mean, because anybody coming there can take ideas from what you guys are already doing for other clients without having, which is everything that we do for clients. It's like, what is the added value that you can give somebody before they come into the funnel and actually become a client to you? Because then that trust barrier is already built and they know that they can thrive in working with you. So that's amazing.
Thank you. We didn't do it for clients, by the way. We did it
No,
for
I
the other
know, for the
reason. We did
mass.
it for
Yeah.
recruiting, right? We
Yeah.
did it
Yeah.
for to be able to hire people, bring
Sure.
people in. And
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 it also
so
has a reflection on other businesses looking at you guys. And even if it's just you're providing education for maybe somebody who can afford to work with you to be able to know what are your tricks of the trade without giving them the secret sauce.
exactly.
Yeah.
So we started doing this, and this kind of helped with the recruiting process. And as we started bringing in team members, and this is kind of goes to the why of the agency per se, is I really wanted to figure out where to build the agency where we can add immense value to the US ecosystem and be able to really allow a chance of growth for some of these startups that are very tight on budget, that don't have a ton of time, and are very under resourced when it comes to human bodies. So where I really centered in around was in Eastern Europe, in a country called Armenia, which is where I'm from,
Yeah.
and where I said, you know what, if I can build the agency and I can build a talent pool out of Armenia, which has an incredible ecosystem for startups already, has incredible engineers, has great product managers, but what it really lacked was a growth marketing ecosystem. So I'm like, if I can foster that within the community and build a team out of there, we will be able to put an incredibly dedicated resource team working on specific clients in the US. So what it ends up translating to really for the US is for the amount that you would be paying for one resource, you get a team of five,
Yeah.
which I can't imagine any startup saying, hold on a second, I'm going to have a whole team versus
Yeah.
having one director of marketing. And that has
It's
been the
true.
real value add that we've been providing to the ecosystem.
Yeah. And I mean, what's great about, I mean, as we grow globally and become more connected globally and we start to hire people, which I think is great. I mean, there's a lot of misconception with some people where they're like, oh, you're hiring out of the Philippines but you're taking advantage of that talent. It's like, no, because if they get a job out of the Philippines, they make X. If they work with me, they make Y, which is double, sometimes triple or quadruple the amount that they're making, right? And they get exposure to US clients, so it's a win-win on both ends. But I love what you say, because I think that crossing over the oceans and getting talent, there is there's a miss, because a lot of people don't realize how talented people are in other countries, like where you're from, like from the Philippines, like from India, and so on and so forth, that they can do the job, they can do it faster at times. And yes, the resources are a lot cheaper, but in what you're championing forward is the ability to help an actual startup thrive and survive in the economics today, which only X percentage make it, right? Because of the lack of resources in that sense. So I mean, it's amazing, because that's really what it essentially is going to help them push forward.
Exactly.
Yeah, I
Thank you.
mean, yeah, it is the new way, I think. I mean, we could spend the whole podcast talking about, hiring internationally, but it's exactly what you said. They were missing kind of the what I like to call the conductor to the symphony, right? As it relates to marketing, which is like, how do we put this all together, and how do I get all my chess pieces in a row by putting that strategy in support to my clients?
Yeah, and part of it, I think, where startups, especially pre-seed and seed startups struggle, right, is it's the hiring is very linear. So you have to hire first, or sometimes like the founders themselves, right? The founders themselves might be doing the marketing in the beginning, and if they haven't had marketing experience, if they're technical, then they know how to build the product. They're really great engineers, but they don't even know how to present it well so it attracts the right clientele or brings the right market in. So
Yeah.
that's one specific group of clients that we have, right? And then we might have the duo where one is really good technical and the other one might be an incredible operator. So he understands the business, he's been in the industry for years, but again, he struggles with being able to do digital marketing. So that's another persona we might have.
Yeah.
And that combination of founders thrive with us because instead of them having to go out and hire a director of marketing who will get the engine going, but the director will struggle because they will need resources. They can't do SEO the way that they want to do it, or they can't do paid at the speed that they want to do it at, or they can't do affiliates because they just don't have the resources to be able to do the outreach. They can't do email because it's just going to take too much time to write the content, to put the HTML together, to put it up, and to make sure it's working properly. Like, you go down through every single one of these things that the modern marketing stack has. You need people to execute on it. You can't just press a button and magically it occurs, right?
Yeah.
So this causes them then to have to go through and start hiring freelancers or contractors and iterate through them and struggle with that too. They're like, did I hire the right one? Do they really understand it? Have they even done this? Are they working? How many projects are they working on at the same time?
Yeah.
Are they really just working on my project, or are they working on 10 projects? So these are the problems I dealt with, right? So when I was working as an advisor as a startup, I'm like, man, if these problems went away,
Yeah.
how much faster could I possibly be moving?
Yeah.
Could I speed up? Can I speed this up 6 months? Right? Could I speed this up 9 months? Let alone the if they're qualified, if they actually have a team that has done this several times and they know what it takes and the dedication involved and the speed involved, what type of results is that overall going to deliver for us?
Yeah. I mean, and it's also the sense of when you're hiring a contractor, you're hiring part-time, it's the time that you waste to onboard somebody on to get them familiar with your product and service. And then it ends in like 2, 3 months. I mean, from an ROI standpoint, it's a waste of money, right? But if you could have somebody that can at least cross over the threshold of 8 months to a year, I mean, then you're getting your ROI in terms of that hire, right? So, I mean, it's super beneficial. So what, and knowing the method, obviously, in terms of like how you work with how you work with your clients, what has been in the beginning of launching this like the biggest barrier? Because obviously, you thought of this idea well ahead, I think, before the boom of like virtual assistants started happening yet again on the heels of something that was exploding. So it's like I'm almost wondering like what's Hamlet thinking about that's happening next, where that everybody hasn't touched. But it's the concept of, what was the biggest barrier for you as you were building this and kind of establishing teams internationally to support that? And, how did you, I guess, push through them to continue moving forward?
It's not easy.
Yeah.
I'm not going to tell you it's easy, right? When I started this, it took a while. This wasn't like, hey, overnight, I'm going to be like, let me go build an agency. It was really a culmination of, for a good 3 years, VCs coming to me, different people coming to me and asking me if I could take on more work. And I would literally say, no, guys, I'm good. I'm really doing fine. And I was a very well paid advisor across 3 successful startups, right? I'm like, I'm good. I'm happy. I can go travel. I
Yeah.
can go here. I can do that.
Yeah.
I'm living the life. I'm good. I'm good.
Yeah.
And the encouragement of my wife at that same time, she's like, there's something you should be doing more.
I love that.
And so she kept on encouraging me. And at the same time as the VCs were coming and telling me, but I couldn't find the why.
Yeah.
I couldn't, I knew what it would take, right? I've gone through startups already. I'm like, oh, so I'm going to start a startup to help startups.
Yeah.
That's literally what I'm going to do, right? Like, this sounds like a crazy idea. I'm going to take the comfort of what I have right now
Yeah.
and start a startup to help startups. I don't know if I want to go through that because
Yeah.
it wasn't about really making money, right? Like, I had the money, I was fine, I'm totally comfortable. So I think the transformation really happened for me is the first time I went and visited Armenia and I saw what was
The
happening
talent.
in the community,
Yeah.
and I saw the opportunity and the impact that I could have overall for the city and the country. And then that became more of my calling of why, right? That became like, all right, I have to do something. I didn't know what that was. I'm
Yeah.
like, there's a change I have to make. And then it initially started as completely free mentoring and advising and teaching and just really making sure that I could even do this. And I did this all remotely, right? I was like in LA and Armenia, and if people don't know the time zone, that's 12 hours. Yes,
Hmm.
that means I'm up at 4:30, 5 talking
Yeah.
to my team so they can work in a normal hour. And for me, I happen to be an early bird. I don't want to play this crying game here. I actually enjoy getting up before the
Yeah.
sun rises.
Yeah.
So I do that and I get to connect with them, and I saw that maybe there's something here, right? And that went on for about 6 months. And then eventually I'm like, all right, I should do something. And when I went to Armenia and I came back, and on that flight back and returning, I emailed the different VCs and I said, I'm ready to start this thing that you've been telling me to start. They got so excited.
Yeah.
I think by the time I landed, I already had 4 or 5 meetings set up with different portfolio companies that they wanted me to talk to. And from that, we hired our first 2 or 3. And then from that, then I had no team. I literally had to go to my clients and say, thank you. Thank you for trusting me, but you're going to have to wait a little bit. I have
Till
to
I
go
hire.
hire people now to do the work.
Yeah.
So I started recruiting, I started hiring, I started going through that process. And as all this was occurring, a war broke out.
Yeah.
So here we are, right? Like 1 month into the building of the agency.
Yeah.
We've hired maybe 4 or 5 people at this point. We've taken on our first clients. We haven't really started doing work yet. We're not billing them.
Yeah.
We haven't really started doing work. We're more doing research. We're forming the team. We're getting everything going. And now we're dealing with an actual war occurring in the region. And how are we going to handle this? And what are we going to do?
Yeah. Unbelievable. So what did you guys do? What happened?
So we ended up basically going back to every client, telling them that, hey, we can't really launch. We're going to have to wait.
Yeah.
They all understood. They all said, we're here. We're going to wait in the sidelines. We waited this time. There's not a problem at all. Let us know how we can help, how we can support.
Yeah.
I said, I'll let you know. I go, I don't even know yet. I'll let you know
Yeah.
once I know and how, what we can
Yeah.
do. I went to the team. I told the team that their job is secure. But they don't have to work on anything. They can go
Yeah.
work on whatever they want to work on that they feel is of urgent. And for them to tell me what I can do.
Yeah.
And then at the same time, I started looking for how we can take our skills and apply it to what was occurring. And one of the things that we realized is that there's a lot of fundraising occurring and that there's a lack of resources, especially for the families that were being displaced because of the war. And we wanted to be able to figure out where to put them. And we partnered with a nonprofit and we gave our services 100% free to them.
Yeah.
In addition to that, we brought some capital into the nonprofit that we utilized it to run the ads to be able to scale and help them raise funds. I think they ended up raising close to 600 to $700,000 in like a course
Amazing.
of a week on a
Wow.
ad spend of like 5 or 8K. So we took the 5 or 8K that we put in, and we were able to raise another $600,000 to $700,000 for them. That was then used to help the families that were displaced to find homes for them during the period.
Wow, what a story. I didn't see that one coming. That's
Thank
amazing.
you. Thank
So
you.
so fast forward then, that happened. You guys fundraised, we move forward, the war is kind of settling down, things are moving forward, and then you begin to build your team.
Yeah.
Or it's not
So the
that
war ends.
simple.
No, yeah, the war ends.
Yeah.
I get depressed for a little bit. I'm like,
Yeah.
is this the right decision?
Yeah.
Is this the right place that I want to build this at? Is
Yeah.
this really what I want to go through?
And I love
I
that.
think
Not
that
to
depression lasted like 2 days, three
Yeah,
days.
I mean, not to interrupt you, but it's like this is why I like starting from the beginning in terms of like how somebody's like trajectory and path, because it's almost like, look, I think we consciously maybe build like our trajectory as humans, but we may not all be like the pen to paper. This is my plan over the next 10 years. This is where I want to be in 20 years. This is my other 10 year after I reach those goals. But just hearing your story kind of unfold and knowing that and hearing that you've been on the heels of pivotal moments within the market, it's the pivot that you have as a human and as a person to know how to shift yourself and align yourself with how the industry is moving, whether it's for the betterment, how you got this like nonprofit, or it all boils down to like the support of like what you're doing from the end goal of like, helping these companies thrive or helping these people get a better place, and then utilizing that whole digital space from that standpoint, which is unbelievable in every kind of story that unfolds.
Thank you. So yeah, so got out of the depression. It took 3 days. I was like,
Yeah.
no, this is not going to stop me.
Yeah.
So literally, I think it was about 3 or 4 or 5 days. I went back to the team. I said, "Hey, we need to get back to work. Uh, we can't let this slow us down." And I said, We have less time now." I go, meaning that if you thought we had 10 years to make this thing work, we have 1 year to make this thing work.
Yeah.
So we really had to, the good old roll up our sleeves and get going. We started hiring really quickly. That was fun. That was challenging. Learning how to hire the right person that fits into the culture that we're building as an organization. And then from there, really onboarding team members, teaching them, really building the plane as we're flying it. And I kid you not, like we're building the plane as we're flying for the startups. We're building the plane as we're flying for the agency.
Yeah.
When I look back at it, I'm like, wow, how were we actually servicing clients
Yeah.
back then? And then my
Bootstrap.
wife's like, you forgot you were working from like 5 a.m. to midnight. You
Yeah.
forgot those days? I'm like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, that's how we were doing.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I every sort of founder or like person starting something, I mean, it's I hate to use the cliche of like fake it till you make it, but it's almost like, yeah, we're doing fine. Everything's crumbling in the background and you're having your own sort of, breakdown and things aren't working, but it's like you're still pushing through and you're so perseverance is the key word here because it is just no matter what obstacle hits you, you just got to keep moving.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
then fast forward to today, the problems are there still, right? It's just a different form of problem. And I think it's a little interesting for me being on this side of the equation now,
Yeah.
right? Like I'm used to being on the other side where I'm talking to the founders. I'm like, oh, you're at 2025 people. These are the problems you're going to have now. And
Yeah.
then I'm like, I'm at 2025 people. I'm having these problems.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you can almost see it coming because you've gone through the cycle a few times. So even though you can see it coming, even though you think you're planning for it properly, even though you want to make sure you're building the right culture, it still seeps in, right? You're like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, it's happening. I gotta self-correct a little bit, fix
Yeah.
this.
Yeah. Strap on because it's the other like peak that we're gonna about, just come roller coaster ride down.
That's exactly what it is, by the way. I explain that to a lot of people. I'm like, if anyone ever thinks growth is a straight linear path forward or it's a step going up, has never really done growth. It's the wildest roller coaster ride you're going to be riding on. It's goes up, it comes down, it goes left, it goes right,
Yep.
and it's the when you are down and how you adjust yourself and learn from that is what allows you to quickly go back up.
Yeah. No, totally. Amazingly said. What in the time of working with these startups has been a great case study to kind of, just walk us through and tell us a little bit about their own kind of roller coaster ride?
Sure. So, I mean, there's so many.
Yeah.
Um, I can give you an example of one of our current clients, which is orders.co. They're also one of the case studies we have on our site if you want to check them out for those listeners. But
Yeah.
but I'll give you a little bit about them. So when we met Arsen and Ashot and Harant, they had literally just completed this incredible restaurant tech platform, right? And it was almost mind blowing to me at the state of the product was at with zero customers and zero market.
Yeah.
Meaning that they literally hadn't built a website yet. They hadn't gone out and gotten. They had a few customers, right? The good old the friends of the founders or the founders
Yeah.
network of
The
people who
family
want to become the
support.
first. Yeah,
Yeah.
the family support who are, but they were using it. They were actually
Yeah.
getting a lot of value and they
Sure.
were learning from the product. But they hadn't really built out the go-to-market strategy. They hadn't built out the website. They hadn't built anything. And when I met them, I was like blown away. Like it took a few meetings for me to make sure the product is really the product because I couldn't understand how they were doing this.
Yeah.
And we took them on. I'd love to report now. This is like 2 years into it. This has been completely bootstrapped. So imagine how hard it is to scale a business that is bootstrapped, that is also a startup.
Yeah.
So the business now is doing a little over 1 million, almost 1.5 million ARR, right?
Okay.
incredible LTV to CAC ratio. It's close to a 6x LTV to CAC ratio.
Yeah, and that's
Has
for the listeners, it's just lifetime value and then cost acquired.
cost acquired, exactly. And we have pretty much done everything for them, right? So from building the website, we initially decided to make it a really fast website because we knew if we made it really fast, using again the most modern technology at that time, which was called Jamstack, which is a headless CMS.
Okay.
What this is for people who are listening in is it allows you to take the WordPress site and build static pages, so it becomes really, really, really fast download. So it puts less pressure on you to have to get a lot of backlinks or referring domains to look back to you to start getting the SEO to work. So we did that. We made a big bet there, and that turned out to be right. Their organic traffic is now just going through the roof, and we're winning some of the more competitive keywords in our category. Where obviously there's always room to improve that. And then the other bet we made there was we initially started running experiments on Google and as well as Facebook really early on. And we quickly learned that Facebook was where our audience was. And we ended up building a nice go-to-market engine for Facebook that has allowed us to scale to where we're at today. And this all bootstrapped in the last year and a half. And now we're going into market and thinking about raising, but the founders are so incredible. They're like, you know what? We're really, really great. And what they have done now is their platform is like an all-in-one solution that does what 2 or 3 products that's VC backed raised do, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
they are such great engineers that they've built this robust platform that allows you now as a restaurateur to come to their platform and save close to 80-90% off of what you would have had to pay if you used all these different solutions against the competing offers that you
Oh,
have today.
wow. So like an all-in-one solution,
It's
basically.
an all-in-one solution, and
Yeah.
they're even going further now. So where they're eventually evolving to is they're now getting into the POS side of things, and I'm like, there's no way you can build this. And
Yeah.
then they both smile at me. They're like, yeah, you haven't figured out that this is what we're
Yeah.
really, really great at, right? So now I'm like, I'm excited because I'm like, go raise money. And then they're like, no, we're going to build a POS solution first. You're going to market that,
Yeah.
and we're not going to need to raise money. I was
Yeah.
like, oh, that's where we're going.
So that's
I'm
where
like,
they
yeah,
think
that's
that's,
exactly where we're going.
yeah. So they think that the POS point of sale is what's going to really kind of catapult them forward. Great.
With their existing restaurant, they have over 1,000 restaurants using the platform
Yeah.
already.
Yeah.
So
Which is
even if they
still
get a
small.
fraction
Yeah.
of the
Yeah.
restaurants to switch over, they're already profitable.
Yeah. Totally. And they can keep growing. I mean, 1,000
They can
is,
keep growing after that. Yeah,
it's just the
exactly.
tip of the iceberg. That's amazing. And I love their attitude towards that. That's fantastic, you know. So this has been really, really, really informative, Hamlet. This has been really great. I love the whole story behind, what you're pursuing, the growth, how you're supporting these tech startups. And really it is the come together of like you're getting an entire team for the cost of one person. And I think that there's testament in the support of, how other companies can really grow forward just utilizing that same method. But before we go, I'd like to let everybody know where they can, how they can log into the website. Is it Azarian.com, and where folks can also find you on LinkedIn as well?
Yeah, it's Azarian Growth Agency. You can also find me at hamletazarian.com, or you can find me on LinkedIn at LinkedIn Hamlet Azarian.
And before I let you go, advice for our listeners who are starting.
Uh, don't let the no's deter you, and it's okay if you don't think you're ready. The reality is you are ready, so don't let yourself deter you as well, too.
I love it. I love it. Great way to end. Thank you, Hamlet. This has been great.
Thank you, Sasha. Thanks for having me.